10 or 11 degrees.
Mike Zeller
on BBC Radio Cumbria.
4 minutes past 7, good morning. We already know how big a part the nuclear industry plays in Cumbria's economy. A new report has found the UK's civil nuclear sector here in the northwest contributed £4.3 billion to the UK economy last year and supported more than 57,000 jobs. The Nuclear Activity Report by Oxford Economics was commissioned by the Nuclear Industry Association. It also discovered that Cumbria and the North West make the largest contribution by far to nuclear skills growth by training more than 1,000 new apprentices each year. And the analysis showed employees contribute 73% more to the economy than the average UK employee. Tom Greatrex is the Chief Executive of the Nuclear Industry Association. I spoke to him and I began by asking why this report was actually carried out.
We know how much the nuclear state power stations provide in terms of electricity, but what we haven't had a real picture of before is just the economic impact of the civil nuclear industry across the United Kingdom. So that's why we asked Oxford Economics, who are independent experts, to have a look at this sector to see exactly what the value of that is, what the economic value is, because that underpins in many ways proposals for new projects in terms of the amount of jobs that can be provided, the amount of supply chain opportunity there is. Cumbria is very, very well placed in that sense to be able to make the most of those opportunities to really be the part of the driving force of the energy requirements we're going to need in this country for decades ahead.
Just explain why the amount of money that the nuclear industry contributes to the economy in our region, why does that matter? Where does it actually go?
The £4.3 billion in GVA in the northwest, and most of that, or a big chunk of that, coming into Cumbria. That means that there's work that comes into the supply chain that's based in Cumbria. It means the people that are working in those companies, their salaries, and all of that drives economic activity, and that feeds its way through in terms of wages and economic spending power, which then, and this is really important in places like Cumbria, which are some distance from the big centres of population, good jobs and wealth in those communities.
Here in Cumbria, looking ahead, does this report support the necessity of projects like Moorside?
Well, what the report does, it's very clear. It sets the value of the activity in 2016, so it's a snapshot of that current activity. But what the report also goes into is the potential there is for the future, and Moorside is an important potential part of that future nuclear activity in the United Kingdom, and that's why news coming in relation to Moorside in the next period will be very welcome, I think. But we now need to get to a position where Toshiba make their decision about where they're likely to be, technology they're likely to be developing, and that then the government and the wider public policy remit is able to ensure that the regulatory process will work, that we're able to get any reactor design approved and able to get on with constructing and generating that power, because quite apart from the impact directly, economic impact in Cumbria, we need that new power capacity, because between 2010 and 2030, two-thirds of all of our power stations will have come to the end of their lives and they need to be replaced. And if we're going to do that in as low carbon a way as possible, then we need to have nuclear as part of that mix, and Cumbria is a good place to be able to do that.
Tom Greatrex from the Nuclear Industry Association that commissioned the new report. Of course, not everyone in Cumbria is so enthusiastic about the industry. Listening to that is Jill Perry, chair of the Copeland and Allerdale Green Party. Jill Perry, good morning to you. If the nuclear industry is contributing £4.3 billion, does make it difficult to argue that it's not good for Cumbria.
Well, it doesn't make it difficult at all, because obviously I haven't read the report. I've not been privy to those details, but I imagine that it doesn't compare the number of jobs and the economic activity that could be created by investing in renewables in the same way. We know that renewables are more job heavy than nuclear. So for every pound spent on nuclear, we are not spending a pound on renewables, which is a much cleaner, safer and cheaper way of generating the same amount of electricity.
But do you not see the money from the nuclear industry benefiting businesses in the supply chain? It's being reinvested in West Cumbria?
Yes, I think West Cumbria is very dependent on the nuclear industry. Whether you think that's a good thing or not is a debatable question. Obviously, I think that a very nuclear-based economy is unhealthy and we should be looking to diversify our economy as much as we can, because nuclear's future is not bright. I imagine that with the cost of nuclear going up constantly, the totally uncosted methods of dealing with the nuclear waste, they have to be uncosted because we have no approved method at the moment. Those costs are going to continue to rise in the future, whereas the costs of renewables are falling dramatically. So the future is not bright, and I'm really sad for those 1,000 apprentices every year who are investing their skills in nuclear, and I really hope that they are able to develop transferable skills so that when the nuclear industry as a generating industry is finished, they can transfer to other methods of generating electricity.
Jill Perry, Chairman of the Copeland and Allerdale Green Party, thank you. Later in the programme, after 8, I'll be talking live to the Unite Union about whether putting so much reliance on the nuclear industry is good for jobs in the county, and I'll also be asking an expert who studies the industry whether a report like this makes a new Moorside power station in Cumbria any more likely.